Uhuru, everyone. Welcome to this special event titled The Black Community Struggled for Housing from Oakland to St. Louis, Reparations Now. My name is Brendan, and I'm a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee, which is under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. I want to start by saluting our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. I also want to salute Deputy Chair Onizene Yeshitela, who was put on the ground Chairman Omali Yeshitela's vision of the Black Power blueprint, and who leads the more than 50 economic institutions of the party. I also want to salute African People's Solidarity Committee Chairwoman Penny Hess, who will be speaking in just a little bit on today's program. This event is part of a monthly series organized by the African People's Solidarity Committee. The African People's Socialist Party formed APSC in 1976 with the mandate to organize other white people to build the movement of reparations and genuine solidarity with the liberation of African people. This is APSC's 50th year organizing white solidarity with Black power. So in today's event, we will be discussing the issue of housing, something the Uhuru movement has led struggles and built institutions for African people's right to adequate and affordable housing. Before we get started, if you are tuning in on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe so you can get alerts whenever we go live or post a new video. If you're tuning in on Facebook, please share this live stream with friends and let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. We'll have a Q&A later in the program, so take notes, enter your questions in the comments on YouTube or Facebook, or in the Q&A feature for everybody joining us on Zoom today. I also want to let everyone know that this event is a fundraiser for the Uhuru Solidarity Center, which is the national headquarters of the APSC and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. A beautiful organizing center located on the south side of St. Louis with a big banner outside that reads "Unity Through Reparations." This building is owned by the party's Black Star Industries. Tonight, we have a goal to raise at least $1,000, so please go to apscuhuru.org/donate to make a contribution. Now, I want to get started. Welcome APSC Chairwoman Penny Hess to begin today's program. Chairwoman Penny was present when the African People's Socialist Party held the founding conference of the Solidarity Committee in the fall of 1976 and has been a cadre member of the African People's Solidarity Committee ever since. In 2001, she published the groundbreaking book, Overturning the Culture of Violence, which under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela detailed the complicity and participation of white people in the historic assaults and colonial violence against African and other oppressed peoples. Uhuru, Chairwoman Penny, turning it over to you.
Uhuru, Brendan, thank you so much for that introduction, and just really want to appreciate you. And I want to really join in saluting everybody who's on. And we know that we do want to build this. We want to build the African People's Solidarity Committee because it is something even more important than ever in so many ways to give white people an opportunity to jump off the pedestal upon which we sit and which we're expected to unite with, what this vicious colonial settler government and system does to African, Palestinian, indigenous, and oppressed and colonized people around the world. And this leadership of the African People's Socialist Party enables us as white people to begin to have a principled relationship to African people and the peoples on the planet Earth and under their leadership, and to be able to build a movement of reparations to African people, which enables us to pay back, begin to pay back what has been stolen from African people and from oppressed and colonized people in terms of land, labor, African human beings used as chattel, as tools to be able to make the money upon which white people live at the expense of everybody else on the planet Earth. And we know that if you're here, if you're listening, you don't want to live in that world. You want to join. You can see the struggles going on from Iran to Beirut to Yemen, all throughout the Middle East. The people are struggling. Palestine, occupied Palestine, people are rising up. And here inside the borders of the United States, the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement working for Black community control of the African community and the ability of African people to have the resources that belong to them and to exercise power and self-determination over their lives. That is the world that I want to live in. I don't want to live in a world with the United States government in my name bombing the people around the world for their oil or just for geopolitical power in a region, for the Gulf, the Straits of Hormuz, or anything else that the U.S. deems that it must have. And certainly we know that the system was built this way. It was built on genocide of the indigenous people, built on the theft of their land, built on the going into Africa by Europe and kidnapping African human beings, forcing them to labor and to work for free, and to have no power whatsoever over their lives for the last 600 years, in which a white child could have the power of life and death over African people. We want that world to be over. So I want to salute Chairman Omali Shatella, my leadership, and Deputy Chair Ona Zinea Shatella, who not only taught us and organized us as white people how to see the world through the eyes of the African working class, how to be able to take a principled stand, even how to articulate what is really happening in the world, this parasitic social system, this thing that the chairman calls the colonial mode of production, that there is nothing that white people have that is not tainted, is not the origin of which is not colonialism, is not suffering of the peoples on the planet Earth and the theft of their resources for our benefit. So that is the world that we have the opportunity to change, not on our own, but under the leadership of the African revolutionary movement for political and economic power in the hands of the African working class, in unity with all other colonized liberation struggles here and around the world. So that's very, very exciting. Again, I want to salute Chairman Omali Shatella and Deputy Chair Ona Zinea Shatella. We're going to talk more about them and the work that they are doing here. We're talking about the question of housing, one of the key issues, absolute key issues of the African community and of African people and the colonized people around the world for many, many years. I also want to salute Comrade Kumba Chinia, the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, the St. Louis branch secretary here. And we're very honored. We'll be talking to him a little bit later. We're very honored to have him on today. And again, we want to say that we denounce this bombing, this violence, this terror by the United States and US-backed Israel, which is the tool of the United States government in the Middle East, bombing of Iran, the Iranian people, Syria, Yemen, Lebanon, Iraq, and genocide in Palestine, and much more throughout the Middle East and throughout the world. And it's really powerful that Iran has been taking a very strong stand and is refusing to come to the table until their terms are met. They are not coming to the table under the U.S. government's terms. And just to say, by the way, it's not just Trump. It's the whole damn system. Before Trump, it was the Democrats. It was Biden. Same struggle, same thing, same relationship of U.S. imperialism and colonial mode of production, forcing the peoples on the planet Earth to do whatever the US government forces them to do, the US government robs and loots them, and that world has to be overturned. So we know that settler colonialism is what the United States is built on. Settler colonialism is genocide. The motto of settler colonialism is to kill everything that moves, to destroy the people, to destroy the earth itself. This is, we can't separate the environmental destruction from the colonial devastation that is imposed on the human beings who have the indigenous and African people and the indigenous peoples of the earth who have taken care of their lands for millennia. So there was never a time in the last 600 years that the US and Europe were not slaughtering other people for gain. There's never been a time that everything was peaceful, and the United States has always been a violent, vicious, imperialist colonial power. And this is what we are struggling against. And the chairman has also called on white people to take a genuine stand of solidarity. The chairman sums it up that in the 1960s and 70s, the white peace movement was saying no more Vietnams. But he points out that Che Guevara didn't say that. He said 2, 3, many Vietnams, that the right of the colonized people to rise up and fight for their land and their resources and their self-determination. And Che recognized in that period that Vietnam was on the front lines of anti-colonial struggle. So the African People's Socialist Party is committed to regaining their stolen resources, the reparations and the return of Africa, and Black African working class political and economic power. So let's go to we have a PowerPoint that we want to show, and let's go to that. See if this is on. So again, we want to salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela, our leadership, and just to say that the chairman has fought his entire life for political and economic power in the hands of the African working class. He has analyzed the period. He has analyzed why in the Black Revolution of the 1960s, African people couldn't win, that there was a counterinsurgency, a US government war, a very serious US government war to crush the struggle of African people, but yet African people have still been fighting against this colonial domination and for power for 600 years, uninterrupted. And the chairman is the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party and leads the Uhuru movement brilliantly, which is based inside the United States among African people and everywhere around the world, including on the continent of Africa and in Europe, any place where African people have been forcibly dispersed by this vicious colonial system. Next slide. I want to salute Deputy Chair Onizane Yeshitela, the leading member of the deputy chair of the party and leading member of the National Central Committee. She is the architect of the Black Power Blueprint and Economic Development. Just an incredible project of political power based on transforming what was deeply impoverished North St. Louis, left to rot literally by the city of St. Louis. All resources dried up, kept away, sucked out of North St. Louis by the city for the benefit of South St. Louis, which is majority white community. North St. Louis is majority African. Deputy Chair has built this beautiful project. We're going to show some pictures of that community garden, of actual farm now, a basketball court, a housing for an African independence workforce program, the incredible 50-foot flagpole of the red, black, and green flying over this whole beautiful area where the Uhuru House is. over in North St. Louis. So we invite people to come to St. Louis. You can have a tour and, just see it for yourself because there's nothing like it, literally here or anyplace else in the world. Next slide. The African People's Socialist Party has always struggled for Black community control of housing, a human right. It struggled in the 1980s in Oakland, California for Measure O and Measure H, which were community control of housing initiatives that were very powerful, that called on literal, absolutely Black community control of African neighborhoods in Oakland, which at that time was majority African. The just to say that the struggle for housing is part and part of the 14-point platform of the African People's Socialist Party. And I just put in here the point 13, which specifically talks about housing, but all of them in a way, address the need for political power for African people. But this is, and I'm not able to read this. It's too small, but I can read it from my issue of the Burning Spear newspaper. Get it here. Point 13, which is saying, sorry, I'm going to read it in English, not in French. Okay, it's saying we want an end to U.S. colonial domination of African people within the U.S. And just the parts in particular that are highlighted, it's saying, this is the party speaking, we believe that the primary struggle of African people within the U.S. during this period is to throw off the alien U.S. colonial domination, which is responsible for virtually every hardship imposed on Black people by this government that is identifiable as, quote, a Black problem. And the chairman is saying, skipping down a little bit, we believe that our problems with housing, from the unavailability of decent and adequate housing for the majority of our people to the dilapidated and vermin-infested housing we are forced to live in, are caused by colonialism. And, goes on that African people must have power over their lives to self-determination, national liberation. Next slide. And, the party makes it clear African communities' struggles for housing are necessary due to colonialism and the colonial mode of production, which means that colonialism is not a thing of the past. It is not something, it's not a political period. It's not a political policy. It is the essence and DNA of the system that we live in as well. We live in this system as the colonizers. African people, indigenous people, oppressed peoples are the colonized within the borders of the United States and around the world. Next slide. And Chairman Omali Shatela's key understanding is the colonial mode of production. Again, everything produced for the colonizer, that's us, comes at the expense of the colonized. There is nothing that is untainted by this political system that we live in. There is nothing that is not soaked in the blood of African indigenous people. And that's just the reality. We can rectify that relationship, but white people throughout history have been complicit with the genocide against African and indigenous people. Next slide. In May 2025, here in St. Louis, there was a devastating tornado. This is a photograph that somebody took of it. Looks like, out of maybe one of the tall buildings, or I don't know. But anyway, it was showing the tornado coming through to hit St. Louis, and it hit the whole area in North St. Louis right where the African People's Socialist Party programs are located, took a direct hit by this major tornado. Next slide. This is some of the buildings and photographs of houses and the community, and there's many, many more. You could Google them yourself, of North St. Louis after the 2025 tornado. Next slide. Again, this is why how African people were affected by this tornado is, just shows the colonial mode of production. And this is showing and comparing the conditions after the tornado in the African community in North St. Louis compared to pictures you see of Tehran after U.S. bombing Beirut and Gaza after the U.S. has assaulted them with missiles and guns and uh, every kind of colonial violence. Next slide. What is called the Central West End, which here in St. Louis is a white upscale neighborhood, was also hit by the tornado pretty squarely on, but it is a white community. Next slide. For example, in North St. Louis, African people had no insurance. Everybody knows that insurance on your home is the most expensive bill that you would have as a homeowner. And a lot of people are like, I got to eat. I can't spend $300 on insurance on my house. So this is a picture of a building that was hit by the tornado in the white community. The owners of this building, Comrade Maureen did the research and found out, received $500,000 to, and that may not be all. That was just one instance of what they received from their insurance to fix up that building. Next slide. This is pictures of Newstead Street, or, the African community in North St. Louis really hit hard, took a direct hit. Again, not just the roof, the whole building is destroyed. And the African community homeowners got, at most, if they were lucky, a check of at most $3,000, which won't even fix a roof, much less rebuild a house. And many, many African people had to move out of the neighborhood or out of the city altogether because they could see, it's almost a year later and the city has done nothing, absolutely nothing, to contribute to the rebuilding of these homes in North St. Louis. Next slide. Also, just to note, and we've said this before, and the party really put this out, the city failed to activate the sirens, where everybody knows in the city, everybody knows when you hear that siren, you have to go to the basement, you have to go downstairs. They didn't activate the sirens at all, and resulting in the deaths of at least 7 African people, which the party has memorialized. Not the city, never talks about the 7 African people that were killed because they couldn't get to shelter during the tornado. Next slide. And the party very powerfully led community mobilization after the city did nothing. And the city said to the African community in North St. Louis, don't self-deploy. Well, of course, the community self-deployed and came out and helped each other in a most truly, like, if you wanted to see what socialism would be like, that's what it was like. They came out, people helped their neighbors, shared food. A lot of people had no power, no water, no clean water, anything. And in some cases, even white people came from the other side, maybe from Illinois, and brought resources to the Uhuru House and to other places. So self-deploying, the city did nothing. This Mayor Spencer did absolutely nothing to help the people, still hasn't done anything. And the people took it on, and the African People's Socialist Party was totally in the leadership, went door to door in North St. Louis. The chairman did himself, knocked on people's doors, and, just really contributed, making the Uhuru House a place where resources were given out for weeks and weeks after the tornado. People came by where the flag was still flying. And, it was a place of the ability of African people to get help from the leadership of the African Revolution. It was very, very beautiful and very powerful. So, yeah, so just to say, after the tornado, the city cut power on the north side, not on the south side, not on the central west end. When people were trying to fix their houses, trying to get their chainsaws, their whatever it is, their power tools working, get their electricity back on, the city turned the power off. And this is a party-led demonstration action down at City Hall, struggling, and that's the mayor there, Kara Spencer, really a colonial overseer, absolutely. And she started crying actually, and because she was being challenged by the reality from the African community that people had no power, no water, no food in many cases, and the city was doing nothing. So the people had to do it themselves. And, there were many community meetings. Next slide. The party struggles with the city's lie, promising to grant funds. They still have not really taken that on. The party has been out there at all of the community meetings where the city, where members of the community were outraged and they can come together to express their outrage, but nothing is ever done about it. So just wanted to lay that out and say this is truly an ongoing struggle, but it's a struggle that we'll talk about, that the Black Power Blueprint is working to create political and economic power where the African working class has and controls the life within the territory of the heart of the African working class community. And next slide. The party has struggled for Black community control, and Measure O, the Black community control of housing initiative that was actually put on the Oakland ballot in 1984 and 1986, two times, winning 22, I believe it was 22% of the vote. It was an incredible, incredible time. I had the honor of being there in the struggle where they couldn't afford to send to 150,000 houses in the flatlands, what's called the flatlands of Oakland. The hills are basically all white. What's called the flatlands are where African people live. And there couldn't, the campaign didn't have the resources to do mailers to 150,000 houses. So the party led what's called drops, mobilizing people, comrades, to start all day and go all throughout the flatlands, which the party did 2.5 times in 6 weeks prior to the election on November 6th of that year. And it was so incredible. Drops means you take a flyer to a person's door and put it there when it tells them about the campaign. And also had right in the Fruitvale neighborhood, which is sort of very much in the center of Oakland, had a very powerful headquarters for the Measure O campaign. Measure O, housing for the homeless, Oakland. There were 30,000 unhoused homeless people in Oakland. Oakland was at that time a majority African city. It is now incredibly gentrified, and African people have been pushed out. I've read up to 10,000 African people have been pushed out of Oakland to other cities, maybe more inland, maybe closer to Sacramento and other places, but dispersed, not together in a very, very incredible community that was just known for Huey Newton living there. The Black Panther Party, it had an incredible history of powerful political leadership throughout the 1960s and 1970s, and then the Uhuru House keeping alive and having the goal to complete the Black Revolution of the 1960s. So um, at this time, the city was planning to put the homeless, the unhoused population of Oakland, 30,000 people, into a deserted military camp that was way out in the county, probably 30, 40 miles away in an isolated, it was a concentration camp that they were trying to do. And this um, former deserted military camp was radioactive because they had done testing of nuclear weapons there at some point. So it wasn't used by the military anymore, but they were going to put African people in a radioactive camp. This is so typical of what happens, what colonialism means for African people. And because of the work of the party, they were not able to do that. Just want to say next slide that the whole question of housing is so critical, and that historically, over the years since the Cuban Revolution, Cuba has had the lowest homeless rate in the world, and actually 85% of people in Cuba own their own home or apartment or condominium. And that is the highest rate of homeownership in the world. But since this current period where these sanctions and forced starvation have been imposed on Cuba through the intensification by the United States government, there have been, they've had to dismantle some of that, and they, have are allowing foreigners to come in to build houses there in Cuba, which you can do very cheaply compared to the United States. Under Historically, under Cuba's revolutionary government, a foreigner could not come in and just buy property in Cuba. It belonged to the people. So this is the attack that's going on, and we salute the struggle of the Cuban people, the heroic struggle to maintain the Cuban Revolution that has been the beacon for the peoples on the planet Earth, and the state power. And it is under intense, very, very intense attack at this moment. We salute comrades that we know in the Uhuru movement who are part of Hands Off Cuba, who have been going there and taking supplies to Cuba and standing with Cuba to make sure that it is not bombed and attacked by the US government. Next slide. In the Measure O and Measure H campaigns in the 1980s, there were abandoned houses all over Oakland where this is one particular case. This is Comrade Omoweli K. Fing, a leading member of the party who is out there at an abandoned house where an unhoused homeless mother and son, Joyce and Jeffrey Wheeler, were attempting to take shelter there and died of exposure and starvation. Outrageous conditions in one of the richest areas of the entire US. Next slide. During this period, the party took over an abandoned house on 98th Avenue, which was about 20 blocks from the Uhuru House. And again, it was one of the many, at that time, abandoned houses it was incredible. They had press releases. Comrade Sandy was there, I know, that they the whole community came together, all facets, just like they did in many ways after the tornado in support of North St. Louis. Here, people came and helped paint it, fix it up, get electrical going in this formerly abandoned house. People created food, and an African woman was able to live there until eventually, and actually in this picture, which is kind of hard to see, there is somebody there with a suit on who was from the city who came, I think he was a city councilman or an alderman who came to visit this property and express his support, but actually what he did was call the police, and they came to, just basically force the African people out. Here is a picture of Comrade Imranif and Marilyn, the woman sitting down, who is the woman who was able to stay in the house briefly. And I'm not able to read that, but I think it says, and it's saying that housing is a human right. Um, it says empty houses and homeless Black people go together. This house is being seized in the name of the Black community control and Black power. And then it has the Uhuru House's name. And it says, as of today, the African People's Socialist Party and Black Community Control Committee are taking back this city-owned abandoned house. We're fixing it up as a home for a homeless Black family. Very powerful action. And the first one to do that. Many other groups tried to, imitate that over the years, but this was powerful. And the party, if I remember correctly, held this for quite a while, for a couple of months. They also took over a park in downtown Oakland in the same period, renamed it Uhuru Park, and fed people that lived there in the park, that were forced to live in the park, 3 meals a day for months. So this is saying that the Measure O would give power to the people and Black power to the Black community. This is the next picture is a picture of the Uhuru House, which was being rented, and the slumlord evicted the party after a rent strike. And it was very powerful, very powerful. We'll have to have a whole thing just on this period. The police came and they had a tape recorder going inside the building, sounding like people were chanting, "We are going to hold this building no matter what." Just, go ahead. I can't remember the whole chants. I know somebody else can, but it was very, very powerful. So the police broke down the door and the place was totally empty, and the party had already moved to the next, a block or so down to another Uhuru House. Very powerful, and the community just thought it was hilarious, which it indeed was. So the next slide, Community Control of Housing Initiative wins a big court victory. The landlords spent millions of dollars to defeat Measure O and tried to get it off the ballot prior to the election. The party, and of course, the chairman and his brilliant political/legal brain and mind and leadership that he gives to legal struggles, politicizing it, led the court battle. We won, the party won. And the next slide is coming down from the stairs from the city hall after the party won that struggle. I love that picture. I remember that day. I was there. That was so powerful. Chanting. It was one of these old court buildings, so it was echoing, Black power to the African community. Also, this is a picture of the rental office for Measure O during the Measure O campaign. Really, really exciting, right in the Fruitvale neighborhood. This next slide, the struggle for Black community control of housing. Everywhere the party organized, this picture here was in Baltimore, but all over the US, wherever the party was organized, African people were struggling for housing. And in the electoral campaigns in 2017, 2019, and 2024 in St. Petersburg, Florida, Comrade Akile ran for city council, Comrade Jesse ran for mayor, and the question of housing was one of the key issues. Next slide. So historically in St. Petersburg, Florida, the gas plant district which was the historic African community where the chairman was born, and um, just, the classic, incredibly historic African community that was absolutely wiped out, just as the white power, the colonial government does in just about every city, including here in St. Louis with the destruction of Mill Creek Valley. There's that story in just about every city, but that gas plant district was destroyed to build a dome that is still there for a sports dome. And it was key to the gentrification of St. Pete. Next slide. Um, and the party led a huge struggle during that period to take back the dome, to prevent the dome being built. It was a great struggle as always. Next slide. Um, and here, these are some great pictures of the Black Power blueprint. This is the answer: political and economic power. The African flag flying over territory taken in the name of the African working class. This is the housing, the Mafundi Lake community workforce, African independence workforce housing, right next to the basketball court in St. Louis, which is really beautifully decorated. And the next slide is the Reparations Investment Company, this beautiful house I believe this is on Holly Street. Jesse's going to talk about it more. The renovation, the current campaign to be able to renovate houses on the north side. And we're calling on white people to come to St. Louis and be part of this. You can donate, but you can also come and volunteer for work. So I'm going to stop there. This is very powerful to be able to lay out. This is just some of what the African People's Socialist Party has been doing over many, many years of struggle and leadership, and building to complete the African Revolution of the 1960s. Uhuru.
Uhuru. That
Uhuru.
was fantastic, and I always love the picture of Boots or Crying Kara. She's got a plethora of nicknames now,
Yeah,
uh, and yeah, and just so
the
much
mayor,
history.
just so people know, the mayor of St.
Yeah,
Louis.
yeah, the St. Louis mayor, and
Right.
just and I think she did get the tornado alarm going for the first time like last weekend. So
Yeah, when it was
finally
not
did
a
it.
tornado, but
Yeah. Yeah, and also like I put in the chat there, like just pompously invited the families of those to killed during this tornado to sue the local government because they have a fund to take care of stuff like that.
yeah, and yeah, she was just like, well, just sue. She
Yeah.
like eh, never went door to door in those neighborhoods, never knocked on doors to say
No.
anything to the people, never came out to struggle for resources, which a
Right.
myriad of even federal agencies. There's all kinds of ways. Even the COVID funds have ended up, they were promised to the North Side African community, and
Yep.
she decided to keep them to fill potholes for the
That's
city.
why the city got those funds.
I know, I know. So this is, there's just so much more that we could say, but this is what colonialism means. And this
Yeah.
is why the African People's Socialist Party is struggling for Black working class power over the African community, economically and politically.
Uhuru, Uhuru, absolutely, and the work that's happening now is just as important, and maybe just as powerful as the work that was happening then, and under deputy chair's
Yes.
leadership now, like here in St. Louis, it's really taking off, and Kumba is joining us as well, and an incredible part of that organizing in North St. Louis and for this kind of work. Chairman Penny, I'm gonna turn it back over to you for the introduction and for the interview.
Uhuru, yes, well, really honored to be able to have Comrade Kumba Chinia, who is the secretary of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement branch here in St. Louis, a really dynamic branch of NPDM. And I'm just really honored to have you here, Comrade Kumba. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you, and I appreciate you, Chairwoman Penny Hess, and I appreciate the work that the African People Solidarity Committee has done for so many years on behalf of the African working class under the leadership of the African People's Social Party. Thank you so much.
Uhuru, and just to say that I know that Comrade Kumba leads or often MCs and chairs the Sunday rallies and meetings at the Uhuru House here in St. Louis every Sunday at 3 o'clock and does a great job. They're always very dynamic and just very, very exciting to go every week to see, the latest struggles, the latest summation. Often the chairman is speaking there. So just really want to salute you for that work. And anybody, people can tune in, by the way, on YouTube and see that if you're not able to be here in St. Louis. Very, very, very great. So I just really wanted to welcome you again, Comrade Kumba, and say that as we know, and we want to talk about it more, we want people to really know, people in the white community, to know the incredible history of the African community, the struggle and the community and economic building that has gone on from for 200 years on the part of the African community. We could just go back. It has worked to build actual communities. It's not been a struggle against racism. Kumba, you grew up here in St. Louis. I've often seen the slogan of people who grew up here, especially from the African community, the slogan, St. Louis versus everybody. And just to say, that stand of just a real resistance and that I have observed. I just wanted to ask you, what does it mean for you to have grown up here, as an African person in this predominantly African city that is very proud and has an incredible history?
Yeah, thank you. And that's a great question. So I was born in 1968 at
Wow.
Homer G. Phillips Hospital,
Wow. Can you
which
say what
was a
that is?
hospital.
Yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
which was a hospital most African people were born in the city of St. Louis for a long time period, especially in my generation, and for those even going back 10 to 20 years prior to that. And
Mhm.
so I grew up, was born on the north side, so to speak, but I grew up on the west side of the city of St. Louis. And I grew up predominantly around all African people. I didn't really have any white neighbors, didn't have any Chinese neighbors, didn't have any Indian neighbors. It was just all African people. And the community was what it was. Like any community, there was ups and downs and this and that and the other, but we had a certain level of community. Whereas that as a little boy, if I say, for example, did something that was considered bad in the streets, one of my neighbors, an older person, would say, or a friend of my brother or sister or someone who knew my mother and things, well, I'm gonna tell your mama. I said, all right, well, we ain't gonna do that anymore. Don't tell my mama. We leave it alone. So there was a certain sense of community ownership that we had of each other to help us to be on the right foot, so to speak. Or they say, I'm gonna tell your daddy when I see your daddy, or something of that nature. But they would be letting known that you can do better, you should do better, and don't get caught up in all this type of chaos that's out there. You don't have to be on the drugs, you don't have to be on the street corner with bottles and things of that nature. And the irony of that, some of these same people that were saying that were some of the same people that were doing some of those so-called illicit activities. But they
Mhm.
watched out for the younger generation because they didn't want us to go in that direction. And that was on the street level. And so I had a whole lot of fun in the city of St. Louis growing up. I had a whole lot of fun. Uh, we used to we used to take people's peaches off the trees and eat peaches, and it's the interesting thing about St. Louis because there were a lot of fruit trees in the city of St. Louis at one time. A
Wow.
lot of them. You could walk down any alley, you would find crab apples, apples, peaches. Of course, the wild berries grow, and all of those things. And you could get peaches. Some people wouldn't let you, but if you asked them, can I have a peach or two? They didn't have a problem with it. They just didn't want you taking it. But being bad kids, we might do that. And so that was it. Now with the housing stock situation, because this is a house and talking to the theme centers around housing in the city of St. Louis, it had some of the most magnificent housing structures that you could imagine in the country and in the world. And the particular street that I grew up on was called Cabaney. And so the block that I grew up on was in between Union and Belt.
Mhm.
On that block, you had many mansions, you had single family houses, you had apartments, you
Mhm.
had a park, Visitation Park, which is now called Ivory Perry Park. But you had a mixed economic class, a group of people, if you will, that lived on this block. And that was a really long block. Incidentally, it's about a quarter of a mile. That's a seriously long block.
Mhm.
And, we played with everybody, anybody. And in that neighborhood, Visitation Park is the neighborhood that I lived in. And so Visitation Park, it was named after some Catholic
Mhm.
setup. But anyway, behind us, there was a private street. Nice, well-to-do African families. And then further up, you got to Central West End because where I lived, I only lived about 3 blocks from where Central West End began, or what is considered the Delmore Divide now.
Mhm.
So the Delmore Divide was divided for a while, but when I was growing up, there was housing stock on Delmore. You drive down Delmore right now, and you wouldn't even never know that there were apartment complexes there. There had been serious apartment complexes there, especially on the south side of Delmore,
Mhm.
and people that I went to school with and knew there. And it was just a cool neighborhood. Like I said, we were children and we had fun and did what we did. And then coming to the age and going to school, schools were local, walked to all my schools until the DSED program kicked in about 80, 82, 83. Then they sent us to the south side. So that was a culture shock in itself. But,
Mhm.
mom was, of the working class family situation, father was brother and sister. We went to church and stuff of that nature, like most of us do. But being an innocent young person, you know, it was okay. It was cool how we thought about it anyway.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. That's a really, really powerful history of your life here in St. Louis. And you know, I just salute that. That is very beautiful community, African community history. And, I wanted to ask you, I know that you are also a serious writer, or you write fairly often for the Burning Spear newspaper. And you're writing right now, I don't know if it's a series, but you're writing articles on St. Louis and other issues in the Midwest region. And I know you've written Spies and Gentrification Threaten to Erase the African Population in St. Louis. And then
I
more.
lost your sound, Penny.
Oh, you lost my sound? Can people hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Can
Anybody
you
else?
hear me?
All right. Can you hear me now? I was saying, I was saluting the articles that you write for the Burning Spear. You were a writer for the Spear, the
Yes.
party's newspaper. And I know that some of them that you have written include Spies and Gentrification Threaten to Erase African Population in St. Louis, and St. Louis is in crisis mode. That is in the March 2026 issue. Can you say a little bit about, those issues, the
Hmm.
gentrification that is threatening and the crisis mode? Just, briefly just sum up what's in some of those articles, and people can go to theburningspear.com and see some of those articles.
Absolutely. And let me be as brief as I can. So, what happens is in the city of St. Louis, after the Team 4 program, Team 4 plan went into effect even though it was said not to have gone into effect legislatively or legally or officially, it went in effect anyway.
Yes.
And so all that stuff that I saw as a child growing up deteriorated in a matter of about 5 or 6 years, it seemed like, not even 10 years. You saw the dilapidated buildings fall down. You saw school closures. You saw abandoned stores and businesses just start popping up overnight. And in the 1980s, I don't know where we actually, well, we got it from war. So in the 1980s, as a teenager and a young adult, we used to call St. Louis Little Beirut because it looked like Beirut wherever you went, especially on the north side and west side. It looked like a bomb had just dropped there.
Mhm.
Uh, and the let it rot was out there in a real intangible way. So what's happening most recently in terms of how the African community will and are losing their housing stock is something that's associated with, for example, the National Geospatial Agency, the NGA, intelligence agency. Call it the Pentagon of the West, if you will. So this is a spy station that remotely looks at countries throughout the world, African communities here, Afghanistan, Iran, Venezuela, etc. And then they let the military arm know who can drop the bombs, where to drop the bombs, and that's what they do. And it's an institution that had amassed a whole lot of territory on in what is considered technically in certain ways old North St. Louis,
Mhm.
but it also is part of North St. Louis period as well. And granted, to be truthful, there were a lot of abandoned buildings there uh, already. They were left to rot. A developer named Paul McKee comes in with Northside Regeneration, his group and organization corporation. He amassed all this property and all this land to strategically position himself so that when the development would come to the area, he would have prime real estate for them and he can make a loot off of it. I mean, he made a bundle.
And he
He'd buy
did.
a property for maybe $1, $2, never cut the weeds, grass grew yay high, never got a fine. They never threatened to say that, and if you don't cut these weeds, if you don't take care of this derelict looking property, you're gonna be out of here. City of St. Louis was complicit with that. Don't matter who the administration was, they've been doing that for years. But anyway, with the NGA, what it has done most recently, it has amassed a lot of property, and there are 6 major communities that it is that butt up against it. You have Carr Square,
Mhm.
you have Columbus Square, you have Hyde Park, you have Jeff Vanderloo, Old St. Louis, Old North St. Louis, and St. Louis Place. It's
Mhm.
6 communities. And complicit with the St. Louis Development Corporation and this thing called Project Connect, this initiative, they have come up with a plan to continue to develop, so-called develop, these particular African communities. Now, these African communities already have been left to rot. And
Mhm.
so, what they're going to do now with these communities, which happen to be all of them are more than 90% African people live in these communities. They are small in number, but these are all African communities predominantly.
Mhm.
With these initiatives from St. Louis Development Corporation and Project Connect, all they're telling people is that we are about to find some money that we didn't have for you in tornado relief, but we're about to find some money and we're going to let this land be developed so then that those employees of NGA, those high priced jobs, can come in and start living in these particular neighborhoods.
Mhm.
Whereas African people will not be able to afford them because, although St. Louis is one of the cheapest places to live in terms of rent,
Mhm.
being in that whole vicinity of the NGA, that means that rent can go up at 3 or 4 times. So you're gonna look at somebody paying about $4,000 a month for rent because these jobs pay nice. And then they are also talking about bringing back certain amenities and looking at grocery stores and things that pickleball courts and etc. These type of amenities. We don't do no pickleball court. Ain't got nothing against it, but we don't do no pickleball court for real in the black community.
Mhm.
But a grocery store we do need. But the city of St. Louis has never, for a long time, hasn't said that it was going to do anything like that for the African community, as as it stands already. The only institution that did anything for the African community in a tangible way has been the African People's Socialist Party. And we talk about the leadership of the Black Power Blueprint. We talk about Reparation Investment Corporation. These are institutions and entities that are taking the material conditions, offsetting it, and changing it in a real way. Because we explain the world, but we also change the world. That's how we move. And ain't nobody else been doing that. So that's just kind of a snapshot.
Really helpful. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I know we're a little bit over our time, but I did just want to ask you before we close up really quickly, because this is the city where Mike Brown was brutally murdered in 2014, and that brought world attention to the conditions of African people in the city. And it's also where the African People's Socialist Party and Chairman Omali Shatella first came here. Just say a little bit about that struggle here in St. Louis. And
I mean, that was a massive struggle. That
yes,
was a massive struggle. And it was a struggle where you even saw international solidarity. Other colonized forces gave strategic suggestions to the African community who were raising all hell in the street. It's coming from Palestine in particular. Palestinians sent messages through social media in terms of how to tell the crowd to, excuse me, position yourself in relationship to the police and the tear gas. But really what came out of it was on the ground, the African Revolution through the African People's Socialist Party. Everything else that came up out of that was just a bunch of sellouts, knockoffs, wannabes, people getting on their knees praying. A couple of people I even knew that grew up in the city of St. Louis or I worked with as a college student doing different organizational work, came here praying, getting on your knees in front of the police. Missed me with that. But it was the African People's Social Party, the Uhuru movement, that really changed the trajectory of the city of St. Louis as a result of what happened to Mike Brown. Because the powerful thing about St. Louis, though, even though African people are somewhat unconscious on a lot of levels, there's a strong level of resistance. It just needs African internationalism. And like the chairman say, the people are looking for us, but don't know it. But we're here now. So one of the things that, like the chairman said, what brought him here and sparked him was when, the youth would say, kill the police. That was a serious and strong statement, profound statement. You just don't say stuff like this. So that lets you know that the consciousness here knows who the enemy is in a certain kind of way, but do not have that ideological clarity. So that's what the party brings. And that's what's moving the city of St. Louis forward. The African People's Soldiers Party, the Uhuru movement and all its institutions, Black Power Blueprint, etc. Farmers Market, etc. Impedum, etc. And coming soon, Black Power 94.1.
Know it. How exciting.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, this has been really, really powerful interview. Thank you so much for being here and giving us this history and this, this view of growing up and being really deeply part of the African community and resistance of North St. Louis. So, and a member of the African People's Socialist Party, the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. Just really salute you. Thank you so much for being with us, and we hope we'll have you back again to talk to us. So thank you again, Comrade Kumba Chinya. Uhuru.
Uhuru, that was fantastic. Thank you so much, Sherman Penny and Kumba, for that profound discussion. Bringing this understanding and most importantly, bringing the science that explains, the state of the world today, and really just kind of, a big look at the local picture, of St. Louis, of why St. Louis is, why the party came here for, to start the Black Power Blueprint, and just how important, this city is for the, the African liberation struggle. And next, I want to bring up USM Chair Jesse Neville to kind of talk about, the latest front in this struggle. He's going to give us some updates on the work of the Reparations Investment Company. Uhuru, Jesse.
Uhuru. Uhuru. Wow. I just want to give a round of applause to Comrade Kuumba and Chairwoman Penny Hess for this incredible event so far. So much has already been said, so much profound history and insight and analysis into what this whole question of gentrification means and the significance of the struggle by African people for control of housing, for control of their communities, of every aspect of their communities. That I will do my best to just go quickly through this presentation because the foundation has already been so eloquently set by the previous speakers. And we can pull up the slide. So I will be talking about a program that Chairwoman Penny has mentioned earlier tonight, which is called the Reparations Investment Company. This is the latest initiative of the Black Power Blueprint that we have heard about tonight here in St. Louis. And I want to join in saluting and acknowledging our leadership, the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru Movement, our leadership in APSC, Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Ona Zanea Yeshitela. Can't say enough to salute their relentless, tireless, brilliant, bold, courageous leadership over the entire struggle of African and oppressed peoples everywhere for self-determination and for the kind of future that we want to be a part of as white people. We want to get off this pedestal, as Chairwoman Penny said. We want to reject our complicity, our history of unity with a parasitic social system built on the backs of African and oppressed peoples. We want to be part of a bright and beautiful future where all human beings have self-determination. Nobody profits at the expense of another. That's the world, that's the vision that Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Ona Zanea Yeshitela are making into a reality every single day. And in particular, I want to appreciate Deputy Chair Ona Zanea Yeshitela for leading the Black Power Blueprint and devising this brilliant innovation called the Reparations Investment Company and giving us the tremendous honor in the Solidarity Movement of being called upon to coordinate this exciting new institution. And I also want to salute our Chairwoman, Penny Hess. Chairwoman Penny Hess has been on the front lines in the white community under the leadership of the African Liberation Movement, under the leadership of the chairman for 50 years. This year marks 50 years since the founding of the African People's Solidarity Committee in 1976. Chairwoman Penny was there. She was the first white person to hear this message and to internalize it and then to live a life that shows us what genuine solidarity looks like. And Chairwoman Penny continues to be the leading force under the party's leadership as the chair of APSC, who inspires all of us with the example of the highest stand of white solidarity with Black power. So most of the time, we're going to talk about investment. Most of the time when you hear words like real estate, investment, you think of rising prices, predatory developers, African families being pushed out of their neighborhoods. In other words, gentrification, the story that we heard tonight, the story of St. Louis, the story of Oakland, the story of St. Pete. It's familiar to all of us. We've seen it time and time again. Big firms come in, investors, developers, they buy up all the properties, they buy up all the land, they price the people out of their homes, they use zoning laws and code enforcement to harass African families and force them out. They use eminent domain to take over entire communities and crush them to the ground. More than 500 Black neighborhoods have seen this reality, have been disappeared by gentrification, which is just another word for colonialism, in the past 45 years alone. And this is the same plan that the city government has for North St. Louis. But the question that RIC poses is, what if we could invest in the opposite? What if our investment could build a Black-led program to end gentrification and rebuild African community control over land, housing, and development? That is the vision behind the Reparations Investment Company. This is a bold, community-driven initiative to rebuild North St. Louis through what Deputy Chair calls renovation that contends with gentrification. So we heard so many eloquent testimonies tonight and presentations about this incredible community here in St. Louis, the African community of North St. Louis, a heroic community, a community that has never, ever stopped fighting for the right to live, the right to prosper, the right to have control over their own communities and their own economies. And this was, as our speakers have informed us, this was a thriving hub of economic life. Neighborhoods like Mill Creek Valley, the Ville, and deliberate policy that razed these neighborhoods to the ground and tore apart the fabric of Black economic life. So now today, you drive across the colonial Del Mar Divide into North St. Louis, you see thousands of boarded up homes, collapsed buildings, empty lots. We hear about the Team 4 plan. We heard about that tonight, that intentionally let the North Side rot. It continues to this day. Every administration after another, and Kara Spencer is no better, has systematically stripped resources from African communities while pouring investment into the South Side, where most of the white population resides. And then came the tornado. So as Chairwoman Penny spoke about, this devastating tornado tore through these same neighborhoods. The chairman said it right after the tornado happened. He said the devastation didn't start with the tornado. The tornado exposed the depth of the colonial assault that has been ongoing for generations. And the people came out, the people self-deployed. The mayor lied. She said help was on the way, but instead they put a police curfew on the North Side and red tagged damaged homes with notices ordering families to move out. They want St. Louis, North St. Louis, to be another New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. And the African community is saying no. And this is probably the only thing Kara Spencer has ever said that I think we could agree with. And that quote goes perfectly with her face. This is the mayor that we have heard about tonight, Kara Spencer, who is presiding over this cynical, outrageous process right now to exploit the tornado, to escalate a land grab on the North Side. We went to the City Hall budget meeting, and the so-called recovery office is talking about, oh, they're going to put $300 million for demolition. They're going to put something like $17 million for repairs, $300 million for demolition. So their plan is to demolish the North Side, not to rebuild it. And now they're saying they won't even start doing any kind of meaningful repairs until the middle of next year, a full 2 years after the tornado. North St. Louis is not waiting. African people are not waiting on Kara Spencer. The Black Power Blueprint and the Reparations Investment Company were created to deal exactly with this reality, to repair this legacy of injustice, and to build a stronger future of prosperity and power for African people. Deputy Chair Ona, who is the visionary architect behind the Black Power Blueprint, says, quote, "We are working to build a North St. Louis where our community can thrive, where we have beautiful homes, where our families can live together in prosperity." That is the vision. That is what the Black Power Blueprint has been doing. In less than 10 years since its launch in 2017, it has done more on the West Florissant corridor than the city has done for the entirety of North St. Louis. So coming out of the Black Power Blueprint, Deputy Chair initiated the creation of the Reparations Investment Company, which is designed to build a reparations-driven model of community development. So what is the RIC all about? RIC is about restoring and improving housing stock on the North Side without displacing the community. It's about expanding Black community control over land, housing, and economic life. Put simply, RIC is an opportunity for people to invest in the African community, regaining power and ownership over the real estate in the North Side and in their neighborhoods in order to develop those properties to be returned to productive use as housing for sale, as stable rental housing, and to be involved in the process of beautifying and uplifting the North Side without gentrifying the African community. So this is revitalization without gentrification, without displacement. And it's an incredible campaign. We're so honored to be a part of it. And we are currently, right now, as the city government is sitting on their hands saying, oh, we're going to get to the repairs next year, 3 properties are already under renovation. Thanks to the support of Reparations Investment Company and investors, the RIC was able to acquire these 3 beautiful properties, and there are now contractors, construction crews, and teams of volunteers working rapidly to renovate these properties so that 2 of them, the one on the left and the one on the right, can be made available for sale, for housing in the community, and the one in the middle will be a 4-plex apartment building with beautiful apartments for rent to create accessible housing in the north side. And we want to salute Angel and Eliad Constructions. And RIC is so proud to partner with licensed contractors, construction teams, and development groups that believe in the self-determination and reparations for the African community on the north side. And Angel is amazing. His crew is amazing. They've worked on 3 of the roofs on 3 of the houses so far in the RIC campaign. So you can become an investor. And we want to salute all of our investors. We want to thank all of you for taking this stand. You can become an investor by getting in touch with us, and I'll tell you more about how to do that. You contact info@reparationsinvestment.com, and one of our team members will schedule a meeting with you. The minimum investment is $2,500 for 1 year, and you're able to generate a financial return at a 7.5% simple annual interest rate while contributing to a long-lasting and exponential positive social impact through your support of the work of the Black Power Blueprint and RIC. So this is basically what it means is divesting from a system of gentrification and colonialism and investing in a new system based on reparations and justice. And what this little chart here shows you is that it's breaking the cycle of colonialism and gentrification and creating a new, healthy, self-replicating cycle of renewal and rebirth and reparations, rebuilding. So this is how it works, basically. Investors make it possible for RIC to acquire properties, to renovate those properties, to either sell or rent those properties in order to return funds and interest to investors and generate revenue that can then be reinvested to expand renovation across the north side. So this is Deputy Chair Onozine Eshitella's genius right here. It's really about creating an economy, an independent African economy where the resources circulate and recirculate within the African community. And in the process of circulating and recirculating, contribute to the exponential growth and development of the African community's capacity for political and economic power. So coming towards the end here, I want to shout out Anne, one of our incredible investors. And this is a beautiful picture here and a wonderful quote from Anne, who put it better than I could. She said, "I moved my money out of investments tied to genocide and destruction into the RIC, where I earn interest while supporting life and development for African people." So poignant and beautiful. Thank you, Anne. And we want to give a profound salute to Usainu, another RIC investor, who says, "A new world in the making. I am proud to invest in my community, putting the future of our people back into our own hands." So this is the voice of the Reparations Investment Company. This is what it means to be an investor. And we are in the process now of building our NTU volunteer brigade. We have volunteer work days going on almost every weekend, including this upcoming Saturday at the properties of the RIC to get these properties renovated. We want to shout out our incredible volunteers that have been coming out on Saturdays to be a part of this transformational process. I want to salute our renovations coordinator and our MC tonight, Comrade Brendan. There he is. He's doing an incredible job leading up the process of making these renovations happen, and he's building a great team, and you can be a part of it. And I want to salute our incredible, brilliant NTU volunteer coordinator, Camille. This is just such a dynamic and powerful comrade who is doing such an amazing job leading up these volunteer work days and building the volunteer campaign of RIC. I want to give a shout out to our contractor in training, Dylan. There he is. He's been hard at work at the RIC properties, and he's also in training right now as an electrician on his way to becoming a full-scale contractor for the Reparations Investment Company. Again, this is all testament to Deputy Chair's leadership and strategy. This is the vision that Deputy Chair has. She wants to see RIC create opportunities for people in the movement to become fully trained and equipped to do this kind of work so that it contributes to building the independent African economy within the movement. So it's so powerful. And if you're ready to join this boots on the ground African community-led campaign to make reparations a reality, you can join us this Saturday here in St. Louis. You can sign up at uhurusolidarity.org/volunteer. By the way, keep an eye out for the new reparationsinvestment.com website coming very soon. And if you're not in St. Louis, you can participate from wherever you are. You can become an investor. You can volunteer from wherever you are. There are promotions teams. That you can also be on the renovations team. If you've got expertise in that area, you can be in those meetings from a distance. There's a team that's working to get in-kind donations from businesses and corporations. You can be on that team. You can develop media, press releases, outreach materials. We need everybody on board. This is an incredible game-changing campaign that's making a tremendous impact, and we want to invite everybody to be a part of it. So just to close out, so just as Northside residents and volunteers mobilized immediately after the tornado, the community is self-deploying once again, stepping forward to rebuild, taking responsibility, and shaping the future of North St. Louis with their own hands. This is genuine community-driven revitalization. This is a positive alternative to gentrification. So as the chairman says, a new world is under construction, and you can be a part of building it. That's what this is about. You can join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. You can join the Reparations Investment Company. You can go to the next slide. You can be a part of building unity through reparations. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Uhuru, comrade. Thank you, Jesse, for that incredible presentation. And I just really want to salute again Deputy Chair and the leadership of APEDF and the African People's Socialist Party, and for providing this incredible way to answer the question that I'm sure anybody who's been out organizing has gotten that question. Well, what do reparations look like? And, we in the Solidarity Committee know it, it's none of our business what reparations look like. It's right there in the name. It's paying back what's owed. But, Deputy Chair has, shown just so beautifully here in St. Louis, like what power in the hands of the African working class looks like. And it is development. It is not like the city of St. Louis where
Uhuru, sorry to cut in. Thank you to ORED Director Maureen for this note here. I do want to mention that part of Deputy Chair's vision is also for there to be spin-off businesses from the Reparations Investment Company. So one of them is going to be a staging company, property managing companies, for people to actually become employed as real estate agents or reparations agents within the RIC. So this is going to create so many different opportunities. It's not just one campaign, it's actually building a whole infrastructure on this basis. So thank you for that. And I also do want to salute and appreciate ORED Director Maureen for all of her leadership and guidance to USM throughout this very, very exciting process, and salute all of the leaders of the African People's Solidarity Committee, especially our chairwoman, Penny Hess, for leading the charge on reparations for the past 50 years. Uhuru.
True, absolutely. Maureen has provided some really incredible leadership throughout this whole process. And if anybody out there who has any experience related to anything we've been talking about with RIC, reach out to us. You'll be able to go to that website soon and find all the information you need. And we will be going to a Q&A shortly. So just a reminder, please submit your questions in the Zoom Q&A feature or in the YouTube or Facebook chat. But before that, I do want to take a few minutes to tell you how you can get involved in solidarity with the African people's struggle for liberation and support this incredible work. The most important thing we can do to stand with all oppressed people is to join under the leadership of the African Revolution, and that is what APSC was created to do. So, and you can, go to apsc.uhuru.org to submit an application and be part of this. But tonight we do have a goal to raise at least $1,000 for the Uhuru Solidarity Center, this beautiful center that Jesse and I'm in right now. So please go to apscuhuru.org/donate. We've already raised $350 of this $1,000 goal. So I want to go ahead and thank everybody who's donated so far. Lisa in Minneapolis, SG Alley, Maureen, Ruby, and I'm going to be putting $40 in. So, these funds that we raise in these APSC events go to the expenses of the Uhuru Solidarity Center here in St. Louis, this incredible organizing center that is owned by the African People's Socialist Party. We in APSC are responsible for developing and promoting this building as we build the movement for white people's reparations to the African community of St. Louis and beyond. It is the headquarters for the African People's Solidarity Committee in the US and around the world. So Uhuru, we're going to go to some slides now. So the African People's Solidarity Committee is unique in that it is a strategic front of the African liberation movement behind enemy lines. So here in the white community, so led by the African People's Socialist Party and founded in 1976. The mass organization of APSC is the Uhuru Solidarity Movement with members in 130 cities in the US and Canada. APSC is a cadre organization, which means that we adhere to African internationalism, the worldview of the African People's Socialist Party, which is a worldview to change the world, not just analyze it. It is a theory that demands practice. Oh, Uhuru, and I do want to shout out Jesse for $50 donation. Chairwoman Penny, Uhuru for $100 donation. So we're getting up there. So this is a beautiful picture of the headquarters of APSC and USM, the Uhuru Solidarity Center, 2654 Gravois Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri. It's an incredible and important space from which we organize campaigns like the annual Days of Reparations campaign, as well as teach-ins, outreach, actions, the reparations work that APSC and USM carry out, the RIC work. The picture here, this is a photo from the March for Reparations that was held here in St. Louis last fall, which we do every single year as part of USM. So the main work of APSC and USM is reparations, returning stolen resources to the programs of the party, building political and economic power in the hands of the African working class, including the Black Power Blueprint, as well as the Uhuru Houses, Uhuru Foods, Black Power 96.3 FM, and the Burning Spear newspaper. We're excited. I'm incredibly excited for the Uhuru Bakery and Cafe to open this year, uplifting the whole North Side by making healthy food and employment available in the African community. Uhuru Foods and Pies just held Pie Day on March 14th. It was a great success with many people buying, volunteering to help bake and selling delicious Uhuru pies. I actually tried the cherry pie for the first time, and it was fantastic. And anyone who's gone to any of the Uhuru Foods and Pies tables where they make, the sandwiches and the sides and the drinks, and it's all really incredible. It's going to be an absolute hit when it opens. So next slide, another critical front of all the work under the leadership of the party is the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign that is pushing back the state attacks on the African liberation movement and leading the struggle for anti-colonial free speech. Check out the latest Hands Off Uhuru webinar titled Hands Off Cuba, Iran, and Venezuela on the Burning Spear TV YouTube channel. Okay, Uhuru. So the Solidarity Center, this incredible building that we're in right now is a vital resource for people from the white community here in St. Louis to come together to plan and organize events, as well as community outreach and fundraisers for reparations and solidarity with the Black liberation movement. So I want to call on you again to contribute to the work of APSC and this center. Go to apscahuru.org. You can make a one-time contribution, or you can become a monthly sustainer like Michael, Virginia, Leah, and so many others who give every month. We couldn't do this without the people. That is what all of this is centered around. And I want to thank everyone who has donated and pledged so far. We are at $550 with $450 remaining. And I do want to shout out Kara Uhuru, incredible comrade Kara, for her $50 donation. Shout out to Janice, who just donated $50 directly to BSI, which also fantastic. So Uhuru, comrade Janice. So again, thank you. And Uhuru Kitty. Well, I think there might be an extra number in there, but Uhuru Kitty, thank you for your donation. So thank you everybody who's contributed so far. Let's keep it going. Let's reach this goal. And if you're watching this webinar, not live, if you're watching it, on the Burning Spear TV or anywhere for that it's replaying, you can still donate. So let's keep going. We'll keep announcing new contributions throughout the rest of the program. But I did want to bring back Chairwoman Penny. Uhuru,
just really want to salute this powerful event. And I see that Comrade Kumba has his hand up. So I just want to make sure that he gets called on before we close out. This is an amazing event.
My slide or my sheets was up, keeping track of the donations. Uhuru, Comrade Kumba.
Uhuru, can we? I'm not sure what is the Cash App link again, or
that is an excellent.
Or do
question.
You get that?
Let's see. We unfortunately do not have Cash App.
Okay, I make something happen in a different way, some kind of way.
The EDF and in PDM, I believe, have it. Yeah, APSC does not have that set up.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. The other thing is, and I know we're about to wrap this up, but one of the other questions that Comrade Penny has asked about in terms of the movement, the Uhuru movement, the party coming to St. Louis, doing the Mike Brown thing. But one of the things that came one of the things that came out of that was an example of how you can and how we are planning to govern in terms of the Black People's Grand Jury. And of course, the chairman made a comment more or less, and I'm not saying it verbatim. It was like, okay, yeah, well, even if you don't think we got the credibility to do it and make it some type of legal, precedent or offering for the world powers, we're going to do it anyway, more or less, because this gives the people an example and to show what we can do in our own vein and on our own merits. And so I thought that was a powerful thing to have occurred. And prior to that, one of the things that had brought me to the Uhuru movement, well, actually, it's a long history, actually. Just real quick, I had heard about and saw the Burning Spear newspaper back in the 1990s as a college student, organizing and being an activist in some regards in a different organization and organizer. So my history in terms of that is a little bit more than 30 years in the making. But the Burning Spear was a great paper. The other thing that sparked my interest in the Uhuru movement was the formation of APDEP, led by Comrade Aisha Field, and see all the work that at that time was going on the continent of Africa with her leadership, under her leadership, with the around Ebola and building the water wells and bringing clean water to the people and so much other stuff. And I was a subscriber. That was my first subscription to any entity in the Uhuru movement, and I was profoundly educated and informed about that. And I thought that was a great thing. And of course, the other thing, and I'll be quick. So, also growing up in the city of St. Louis, Black Power was a powerful thing in the city, and I was aware of, many of us were aware of the Black Panther Party, and I saw and understood the Black Panther Party at that time as being the opposite of the Ku Klux Klan. That's how I rationalized it in my mind. And so Black Power was a strong thing here. And even as a little boy coming out of church, I would throw my black fist at the end of the service when we was out, Black Power, type of deal. And they entertained me. They didn't bother me, because I was a little kid. But it was a profound thing, and it just shows that when the correct or revolutionary ideology permeates through the African community or the world African community, I'm talking about particularly, it will catch and it will spread like wildfire, like what we're doing with the Uhuru movement now.
Uhuru. Uhuru. Thank you for that. I couldn't agree more. So yeah, that's absolutely. Uhuru. Well, I know we are running a little past time. Chairman Penny, I wanted to do just a quick call to join, and then we can move on to our questions and comments. Uhuru. So I did want to, let everyone know you can, join this incredible organization. The most important way you could take action is, to join the African People's Solidarity Committee under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. You can go to apscuhuru.org/join, fill out the form. Someone from our membership office will contact you within 24 hours, and we can get started on the new member process, which includes political education and getting to work doing, being a part of this, contributing your skills, your strengths to our mission of winning millions in reparations to the African liberation struggle, building a massive movement of white solidarity with Black power under the leadership of the party. So this is the time to bring all the resources stolen from African people for hundreds of years to the African Revolution. So join today. Go to apscuhuru.org/join. And as we head into our Q&A, I did want to recognize where people are tuning in from, and thank our incredible chat moderators for keeping track of this, getting it all pulled together. So we've got St. Louis, Missouri, Sumter, South Carolina, Oakland, California, Louisville, Kentucky, Ecuador, St. Petersburg, Florida, Charlotte. We've got Ecuador, a couple people from Ecuador on here. Fantastic. A bunch of folks from St. Louis and a few from Louisville. So salute to everyone joining wherever you're joining us from. And we'll get right into the comments here. So from at Moss Revelator on YouTube, salute to all comrades struggling for liberation in ways both big and small. And from the incredible Ann Hirsch about overturning the culture of violence, amazing book, changed my view of the world many years ago. And salute Penny, she made the space for all of us to take a principled stand. And I unite with that statement. And Uhuru, Comrade Ann. From SG Ali on YouTube, Uhuru joining as a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee in St. Louis, celebrating 50 years of organizing white solidarity with Black power. Uhuru, Comrade Ann again. Thank you, Kumba. Love hearing your stories and analysis, and I echo that. From Maureen on Zoom, Uhuru, it is all Deputy Chair's guidance, leadership, and vision. It is such an honor and so exciting to be part of it. And she is absolutely right. Like that's, where this, RIC, the Black Power Blueprint, where this comes from. And there's nothing like it, in the world. So major salute to Deputy Chair and her entire office and all of the incredible work that those comrades do. I do want to say, come to the plenary coming up in just a few weeks here in St. Louis. And I think we've got a slide in the announcements with more information about that. But last, our fundraising update. So we got Johan, Camille, MQ, of course. So right now we are at $675. Again, we do have that goal of $1,000. So I want to encourage everybody, go to apscohuru.org /donate and contribute. Oh, and our chat moderators are putting in another comment from Uhuru from Camille. Let me see if I can find that. Sorry, we'll get back to that in just a second, but keep donating. If you're watching this recording, you can still donate. Before we move into the announcements and closing, Uhuru, Chairwoman Penny, did you have any final words?
Yes, this has been a really powerful event. Just really want to salute everybody who has presented. I really salute the presentation on the Reparations Investment Corporation, and I do just unite in saluting the brilliance of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Onizane Yeshitela for making the power of the people, Black power, tangible and real, and not just explaining the world, but changing the world, which has always been the goal of the African People's Socialist Party. And I do just want to say that the whole way that for the first time in history, I can't think of anything else that's ever been like this, where you can actually invest in something that is the opposite of gentrification. You can invest in something that is building and maintaining the power of the African community in an incredible way. And it shows the struggle for state power of African people. And I just, again, it's an incredible honor to be under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, the office of the chairman, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the office of Deputy Chair Onizane Yeshitela, and thank again the powerful intervention and interview with Comrade Kumba Chinia, and just really appreciate that. It was very historic. So, and thank you, Comrade Brendan, and everybody who's been on tonight. We are winning.
Uhuru, absolutely. Yes, and we do have some announcements coming up, some incredible things that you're going to want to be a part of. There's two more comments that I think are very appropriate. Uhuru, the work can only, this is from Comrade Camille, Uhuru, the work can only be done with the leadership of the Black community. Salute. This is from Indigo. Uhuru, salute Chairwoman Penny and Comrade Kumba. White people are being won to the stance of reparations to African people, joining under the leadership of the African Working Class Revolutionary Party is the solution.
Uhuru, comrades.
So
come to the plenary. You can't
yes.
April 17th to the 19th. You've got to be here. It's going to be historic.
Yes.
You'll be able to see also all of the work of the party, the Black Power in action, reparations in action. It's here. Uhuru.
Yeah, let's get those slides up, and we'll, that'll be our big closing. So okay, Uhuru, calling on anyone watching who is able to be in New York City tomorrow. Stand with Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. Again, that's tomorrow, March 26th at 8 a.m. Eastern in New York City for the trial of President Maduro and first combatants Celia Flores. Gather outside the U.S. District Court, Southern District of New York at 500 Pearl Street. Join the march and rally in defense of the Venezuelan sovereignty, to denounce the attacks on the peoples of Venezuela and to bring them home. Questions, email coalition@handsoffuhuru.org, and you can get your banners at handsoffuhuru.org/outreach. Uhuru, calling on all APSC and USM members and supporters, make plans to attend and register now for the African People's Socialist Party's 2026 plenary, themed this year, "This Time Till It's Won." Power in our hands. It's not just Trump, it's the whole damn system. April 17th through the 19th, this year in St. Louis, Missouri. For more information and to register, go to apspplenary.org. And it is going to be an absolutely historic and incredible event. I can't, speak enough about, urge you enough to come to this. So we've got a few more. Next slide. Join the Reparations Investment Company for a volunteer workday in St. Louis this Saturday, March 28th at 9 a.m. Central Time. Location details will be sent after you register. You can sign up online at uhurusolidarity.org/volunteer. Next slide. Subscribe to get the Burning Spear news and analysis sent to your email inbox. Visit theburningspear.substack.com. And check out the One Africa Worldview podcast on youtube.com/@theburningspear. They are live Mondays at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, and you can catch up on past episodes as well. Watch and listen to the latest episodes of White Lies Shattered /Reparations in Action podcast. Check out the playlist of past episodes on the Uhuru Solidarity YouTube channel and on uhurusolidarity.podbean.com. Would you like to get involved with the podcast? We are building the team and looking for volunteers. Email us at volunteer@apscuhuru.org. So in addition to all of these incredible online resources, we are an organization of organizers. We are on the ground doing outreach, talking with people face to face. So we call on all APSC and Uhuru Solidarity Movement members and supporters to read and distribute the best organizing tool we have, the Burning Spear newspaper. So now is the time to order bundles of the April issue. Go to theburningspear.store. And a reminder, you can find resources to support your spear distribution efforts at apscuhuru.org/spear toolkit. Uhuru Planet Reparations Apparel is clothing, accessories, and more that is forwarding the culture of white reparations to African people. It is an institution of Black Star Industries. Go to the online store at uhuruplanet.com to check out the newest design. Uhuru means freedom. Again, you can find details about these and more upcoming events at theburningspear.com/events. Uhuru, the press conference for tomorrow. Do you want to announce that real quick?
Yes. Uhuru, thank you, Brendan. Let me see if I can share my screen to show this. So what do you see here? Do you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
The whole screen. Okay. Well, so tomorrow there is going to be a press conference. Okay, there we go. So 4 years after the FBI raids, Uhuru 3 returned to court in landmark free speech showdown. Appeals court to hear case challenging thought crime conviction with major implications for free speech, featuring Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Chairwoman Penny Hess, and myself will be speaking tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Central Time at the Uhuru House, 4101 West Florissant Avenue. And it will be broadcast live on the Burning Spear TV YouTube channel. So there's some major developments coming up that we're going to be announcing and discussing in the case of the Uhuru 3, and you can find out all about it tomorrow.
Uhuru. Thank you for that. Absolutely. I'm very excited to hear about that. Again, I do want to thank everybody who donated. If you're watching the recording later, you can still contribute. Make sure to visit uhurusolidarity.org. and apscuhuru.org to learn more about the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, the African People's Solidarity Committee, and how you can become a member and join the work to build white solidarity with Black power and unity through reparations. I want to thank our presenters and to everyone who participated today, everyone joining us online. Solidarity with the Black community's demand for Black community control of housing. Solidarity, not charity. Unity through reparations.
Uhuru.
Uhuru. Yep.